Hey everybody, Max here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the G.I. Joe Classified Series Wetsuit. This is definitely one of my top 10. He was one of my all-time favorite G.I. Joe figures. When I got into the Classified Series, Wetsuit was right at the top in terms of the figures that I had to see, and now, a few years later, finally got him. He is largely good, with a few quibbles and complaints. But on a whole, this is a really excellent figure. I am scratching my head over a couple of design choices, and we will talk about that. And everything that you see here is what he comes with. So there's no accessories off to the side. Everything he can now store everything. So we're kind of getting back into that storing everything, being able all of his equipment can go on the figure. So we kind of got away with that. I mean, some figures, you know what I'm saying. If you watch some of my videos, you know what I'm talking about. If you have not watched any of my videos and this is your first one here, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Glad to have you. Trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the year. It's just after Thanksgiving 2025 at the time of this recording. And yeah, that'd be a really big milestone for me and the channel. And so I really appreciate everybody who has taken a chance on the early days. Been doing this for about a year. And I just want to say thanks to all of you guys. So in the season of Thanksgiving, I'm thankful for all of my subscribers, and I welcome new ones. So, all right, enough of that. Let's dive into the figure. Well, actually, let's dive into the package. We got our usual carbon fiber front. Pretty good artwork on the side, kind of generic, I guess. Hopefully not generated by an AI and generated by a real person, but definitely really cool. I've always liked the colors of this guy. I mean, it's kind of the colors of Wetsuit don't really lend itself to like a military style unit. It doesn't seem like he's more like a Jacques Cousteau underwater explorer kind of look. But I don't care. He's a Navy SEAL and he looked cool, and I really liked him in the cartoon. And I think they really got the look of his face sculpt very close to the cartoon. I think he had like bushier hair than that, but this looks really great. And like the diorama shot, the the diorama shot here kind of lends you to believe that you can do certain things and you really can't. So I'm going to explain what that means in just a second. And then we have the attributes on the side, and that is the box. So let's bring out Wetsuit and break him down and see what we can see. So let's get him off of the underwater stand here and get him into a neutral position, talk about his equipment, and then we'll talk about the figure and give him a rating like we normally do. So, okay. So let's see. All right. And change my angle here. All right, guys. Hopefully the lighting is decent enough for you guys. Okay, so where to start? Let's start with the stuff in his hands. We'll start with, he comes with a pretty big dive light, or dive knife. The light's in his other hand. So let's get this light out of the way, maybe over here. Maybe that'll help. All right, so pretty good. A little on the thin side. This handle should be a little bit thicker so that he can hold it a little more securely in his hand. But I definitely like the design of the blade. Would have been nice if it had some silver paint on it, but I guess you could add that later. And maybe some modeling clay or something around the handle. You could mold it and make it a little thicker so that it fits in his hand a little better. Goes in this nice sheath here. So the original figure, like I said, was one of my all-time favorites. It's a 1986 Joe, which was a just banner year for G.I. Joe, in my opinion. He had a knife molded in that you could not take out. He had a pistol molded in that you could not take out. So now you get to actually wield those weapons. Also, like the original, he came with this nice bright orange dive light with some orange plastic, black on the cord, black here on the housing, and then silver on the center, and that is very cool. So definitely a little bit of a searchlight as he goes exploring deep in the recesses of the ocean. So let's see, let's get this submersible thing off of here. Well, before I do that, let's talk about the fact that you can store this thing. The original it was a single-handed thing. He could hold it with one hand and that was it. And so this is completely different design, and in keeping with the mythos or the design team's like their plan to have every character store everything, there is a plug that allows you to plug it into the back of his rebreather here. And oh, there goes my light. And very securely, as you can tell. And this is while the design is cool, this is my main complaint, that as you could tell from the box, it shows him holding that thing. And I have gone around and around trying to get his hand to wrap around one of these little pylons here, and his hand is too wide for one thing, and it seems like I assume that little recess is for like a trigger finger, like his trigger finger hand to go, or his index finger to go around that. Doesn't really work, doesn't wrap around very well, so I don't think it was really the design intention was for him to hold it like that. I think this is just the production photographers, the marketing photographers, those guys probably just said, hey, the original character, the original figure was able to do that. Let's see what we can do. And they probably just monkeyed with it. For all I know, they shaved down some of the plastic so he could hold it a little better. So, but in real life, it doesn't really hold it very well. And so, and also from the way it ports into the bottom makes me think that it's meant to be stored that way, that it's supposed to be, he's not supposed to hold it. It's supposed to be, water gets sucked in the front here by the propellers, and then maybe it gets like, compressed or something, and it high pressure, it does something and it shoots it out the back. And so he's got a high pressure water stream that propels him through the water. And so maybe this is for exhaust, and this is like the fuel tank. And although I don't know why the fins would be shaped this way, so I would think it would be the other way. So it's a little confusing, but that is not the first time I've been confused by a design choice. Raptor's wings. That's, if you watch my Raptor video, you've heard me talk about like just scratching my head over some of the design choices. So the fins like this seem to indicate that this is the way it would be. This is the way you would be propelled. But you port it this way. And I would imagine that the propellers would be right here, and like I described it. And of course, the shape of these fins in this orientation, if what I'm suspecting or the way I'm describing it is actually accurate, that's how the fins looked on the original little sea sled. That's what it was called, a sea sled. So his little sea sled had fins like that, but again, these seem to be the directional fins. Why would they be right there? So it's just a little confusing. It's nice. I mean, it's a nice design looking thing, but be careful. The pylons are a little flexible. It's not soft plastic, like not gummy or anything, but if you go monkeying around too much with this, just be careful, and otherwise you will probably snap it. So just be careful with that. Let's take this gun out. His thigh holster here just keeps floating around. I'm going to have to probably glue it down. And we get this interesting, cool little, what I'm assuming is like maybe a compressed air gun of some sort, maybe like a mini harpoon gun. Let's see if we can get a little better light here and show the details. No trigger guard, just a straight trigger. And if this has a real-world equivalent, let me know in the comment section if you recognize this. I can see something like this being like, compressed air, something like that. Not a traditional firearm, but and it looks like it has 5 barrels. So maybe it fires a series of 5 darts or mini harpoons or something like that. So that would be kind of cool. So he has a gun that he can use, a weapon underwater, something that fires underwater. Okay, so we got that. Let's get his helmet off, his rebreather mask, and his backpack. And this looks almost, I mean, everything about this guy, with the exception of the sea sled, is pretty much point for point accurate with regards to the original character. So the rebreather mask, the helmet here, actually has painted on lights. The original didn't. It was just orange plastic with some, like teal coloring around it. And, it's cool that we finally get to see his face. I mean, we saw him in the cartoon, and it ports in, the hoses port into the back, just like the original. They are fairly flexible. They're one piece, I mean, obviously one piece, but they port in here. They don't detach. These are permanently affixed, but you can rotate them around. So there's some flexibility there, but they're a little too stiff for my taste. So trying to get him to move his head is going to be a little bit difficult with his helmet on, which is unfortunate. So it's not as flexible as, say, what came with Torpedo. So that is unfortunate, but you do get some movement there. The details are very well done, and you can see his, it's clear. It's a little cloudy. I may have to, I don't know if it's just, I need to clean his lenses here, but you can see his eyes through it, which is great. But the problem with this, as cool as it looks, it flops around a little bit too much. The opening is a little too small. I mean, it gets the job done. It's not as flexible as, say, the sci-fi helmet. If you haven't watched my sci-fi review, give that a look-see. And let's see here. Can we get some extra light? So hopefully you can see that. You can see his eyes, but there's just a little too much wobble. And there's very little range of motion in his head. So that is very disappointing for one of my top 10 favorite figures. So probably going to use some handy tack to keep that helmet in place. And so yeah, that's just disappointing. I can't believe that they couldn't make it fit a little better, like, say, the eel helmets. Granted, those are going over just like a face masked character, smooth-headed character. But at the same time, I don't know, it just feels like they dropped the ball a little bit. The design is great, but the actual function of it just seems like there's just too much space inside of there. So that is a shame. I wish they had worked out that bug. That would have been great. So I'm going to have to ding it for that. Backpack is almost exactly like the original, but with some extra paint. So it was just orange all the way around. It was just a big orange piece of plastic, and we got some black paint on the tubes, on the handle, and then what I'm assuming is something to do with the rebreather function. So, and then the port for the sea sled. And there's also three plugs for it to go on. And maybe that lends itself to make me think that, it's to secure it a little bit better. I mean, they plug onto, like, one central plug into the back, and then two side plugs into the overlay, which is interesting, but it gives it a little more stability to carry the weight, perhaps, of the sea sled on there. So that is pretty cool. And it is definitely very secure, so I'm very glad for a very secure backpack. Nothing's wobbling, nothing is coming loose accidentally, so that is great. And then he has these upper bicep pouches that go around the upper bicep. They were molded into the original figure, so you can take these off if you so choose. They haven't stretched, they don't really get in the way, they don't move or flop, so they are fairly snug. And same with the overlay, that is great. The overlay is also very tight, and then he also has this kind of belt, an extra belt here over the waist piece, which is great. So we got a lot of, it's gray plastic with some black on the straps and the pouches. And then his kind of the teal and then the white stripes. And that turned out really well. And then the white in the front, and then the like flying fish on his upper left chest. That's great. Zippers turned out look really well. Same with the holsters. These are in the sheath. Those are new parts as well. New legs, new arms, The back of the legs even have zippers molded in for the wetsuit to help him loosen. So that's an interesting little piece of detail that they added, and that is very cool. So he looks very good, very, very good. I'm very pleased. And like I said, the head sculpt, he's very stern, very serious looking. But I think they really captured the look of him from the cartoon. Very cool all around. And this is a new body. I don't think there is any reuse from any other figure. He initially, I was a little concerned that his torso was a little too long. It looked misproportioned. And I made that comment on Lyle's Figure Files, and then Jeffrey Lyles responded saying that he thought he looked more like a professional swimmer, like say Michael Phelps, Olympic level swimmer. And once he pointed that out, I totally see it. So he's long arms, long legs, long torso, and his body looks like that of a professional swimmer or diver, and definitely muscular, but kind of a thin muscular. He's not bulky, so kind of slender, if that makes any sense. So he's a slim guy with a lot of muscles. So anyway, I think he looks great. I think the body turned out very well, and he's a little bit taller than some of the other Standard Joes. Let's see, I've got what do I have handy? I've got a little Kit Bash Stalker figure, so he's slightly taller. I don't know if you can see, hopefully you can see that. The angle's not too bad, but just slightly, just a touch, So, but of course, maybe I'm the only one that sees it. All right, so articulation wise, he looks down that far, floating neck, ball joint for the head. I wish he could look up a little further so that when you have if you're doing like an underwater diorama shot, that he can kind of, it's almost like a flying pose, right? So he needs to be able to look up. So there's some material that's going to get cut out of this guy to give him a little more range of motion. But his side to side is good. Goes all the way around. This is Linda Blair. That sort of thing. T-pose, solid joints, and pretty good butterfly joint on this guy too. It's not, it stays in place. The back is a little better than the front and going forward, but we all know that the arms, the shoulder pegs have these little extra extensions that you can pop the arms out, heat it up, pop the arms out, trim that little peg and put it back in. You'll get a little more range of motion, but you may end up with loose butterfly joints, so just be careful with that. Well, he does go all the way around, which is great, and he has good bicep swivel on both arms, and then he has double jointed pinless elbows and pretty good range of motion, like so. And he has a pretty good ab crunch. Goes forward that far and then back that far, and no wobble. He has pretty good side to side. All right, and then this other, you can kind of see, I was a little afraid that he was going to be a little loose right here, but he's actually pretty good in the waist. So, and then you have this extra belt that can kind of cover up any gaps. It floats around a little bit, but not too bad. And let's take the weapons out. He gets pretty good splits with the knife out. There's a little bit of looseness here in the hip area, only in certain positions, but he does kick forward about 90 degrees, does have drop down hips. The new waist piece seems to be hindering a little bit of movement, at least going straight forward, but he does kick past 90 degrees, and then the legs kick back that far. And he does have a ankle swivel, which is nice. And then feet. Rock around the clock, both legs. There you go. Okay, and then he has these nice new flippers, which we are most likely going to see on the forthcoming Hydra Viper, which I don't know why they gave him. He could have just given him the standard, flippers from Torpedo. I would have been fine with that. Um, so why give him the brand new flippers that we're going to see on the enemy, the Cobra Hydro Viper? Now that's another one in my top 10 that I've been waiting on. I can't wait to see what that guy looks like. I love all the underwater characters, so these flippers are good. They flip and they flop. Don't know why they have this little tassel, little spine on the end. It's a little extension here. Don't know why I said tassel, but yeah, colors turned out really well. So that is Mr. Wetsuit. Sorry, I'm getting over the crud and having a little hard time talking today, so thank you for sticking around this long. But I'm going to give this guy a warp factor of, probably going to give him a 9. I kind of feel like, I mean, that might be a little too high. But I mean, he's definitely one of my all-time favorites, and that alone makes me want to give him a higher rating, or a high rating, and he definitely deserves it. I mean, materials and everything, he's definitely a very solid figure. Other than his helmet and the questionable design choices of the submersible, he's fantastic. And the knife needs to have a thicker handle, of course, but other than that, I think they really did a good job designing this guy, and it was very well executed. I'm very pleased. I'm very happy to have this guy. I may have to throw a little Mod Podge into the hip joints just to kind of shore them up a little bit, because I just don't like loose joints. But yeah, I guess I'll just give him a warp factor of 9. The figure itself, I mean, I'm going to have to work around with the helmet here, but on a whole, everything looks really good. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section. Would you rate him lower? Would you rate him higher? Am I being a little overly critical because he's one of my favorites? That's kind of, you run the risk of that when you have a figure that you're really anticipating, and then so you're expecting perfection, and then you don't get it, but you hardly ever get perfection in anything anyway. So I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And again, if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so. Thanks for watching, guys. Continue to be awesome, and I'll talk to you guys next time.